All right, welcome everyone. My name is Jez. I am the Adult and Teen Programming Coordinator at the library. I'm just going to go over a couple of things before we get started. We are only on Zoom today, not hybrid, but I did turn on the closed captioning. If you do not want to see the subtitles and they're on your screen, you can click either the CC button, or if you don't see that, click the 3 dots or more, and then hit the button that says hide subtitle, and you won't have to see those on your screen, but it is an option. We are recording the program today. If you signed up through the library's website, I will email that to you as soon as it's ready. We'll just send the link out to everyone. If you did not do it through the library's website, I can send it through Meetup, or if you send us an email at programming@elmlib.org, I'll make sure you are on the list. I'll type that in the chat here. So we do have some other programs coming up. Tomorrow at 7 o'clock, we have the first meeting of our French discussion group, and that will be on Zoom. So similar to our Ciao Italia programs, we'll learn a little bit about the language, a little bit about the culture, and that'll be once a month. On Friday at 11:30, we have chair yoga. That one's also going to be on Zoom, although it's usually in person. And at 2 o'clock, we have our Friday features, and this week's movie is Cruella, and that one is in person at the library. And then on Tuesday, February 1st at 7 p.m., we have The Great War and the Great Migration. So that's going to be all about how World War I affected demographics in the US and worked together with the Great Migration. It'll be the kickoff to our Black History Month programs. So tune in for that. I will put the link in the chat so you can register for all of these and see everything else on our calendar. Tonight, we are going to learn about buying your first home, or maybe your first home in a while. I know sometimes we get people who are going back into that because they're downsizing or moving. You can ask questions throughout. You can put them in the Q&A. So it's that little button that looks like 2 speech bubbles. You can put that in at any time, and then I'll ask them at the end. That way you don't have to remember everything. There are a couple of handouts, so I will drop those in the chat as well if you did not get them in the email. And yeah, if you have any issues, you can contact the library, 630-279-8696, and they can help you. But if you've already gotten this far, that's probably all you need to do. You've done the hardest part. So let's go ahead and get started with Betsy. Welcome.
Thank you. So tonight, we're going to learn about your future home in great detail. Denise, your realtor, will explain the ins and outs of buying a home and what you need to know as a first-time home buyer. And it's her job to protect you as well as educate you. Greg, the inspector, will help you determine if the home you have chosen is a good investment. And he's very good at seeing things that you don't, and he will protect you and educate you as well. As your mortgage lender, my job is a little bit different from Denise and Greg. I will educate you too, but it's my job to make sure you are financially qualified to purchase a home. Well, what does that mean? Basically, it means we're going to review your income, your assets, and your debt. Simple enough. Income, assets, debt. But it gets a little bit more involved than that. We are going to spend a little bit of time going over these requirements. I'm going to share our screen, and let me get to the screen. Here we go. So what we do when we pre-qualify you for a home is we look at credit, capital, collateral, capacity. Remember the 4 C's. And so it's really very, very basic. We look at your credit to see if you pay your bills on time. We look at your capital to see what your savings are to purchase a home. We look at the collateral, of course, the property, along with Denise and Greg looking at the property. And then we look at your capacity to be able to purchase the home. And we're going to get into that. We're going to actually dive right in. So there's 2 ways to figure out if you can qualify for a home. And one is called a pre-qualification. One is called a pre-approval. The pre-qualification is when you call me up and you said, Betsy, I have no idea if I can qualify to buy a home. So I'll talk to you over the phone. We'll talk about your income, your assets, your credit, your debt. And I'll figure out right over the phone if you can pretty much get pre-qualified. That's what a pre-qualification is. But a pre-approval is when we actually give you a pre-approval letter, and I give that to Denise, and she goes and then shows you homes that are within your price range, because the pre-approval letter will state how much you can afford. But we do a much more in-depth review of your income, assets, credit, job time. We will have you upload W-2s, pay stubs, bank statements, and whatever else is necessary, divorce decrees, etc. We have you upload that to our secure site, and then we run it through underwriting with Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac or FHA, whoever the investor is, to make sure that you are creditworthy. Well, what is creditworthy? Okay, well, there's a few things that fall under that category. One of the biggest things that we're going to look at is your debt to income. And it's a ratio. It's a just a quick math ratio. And it's DTI for short, debt to income. So I've got a couple examples here. And the first one is where your debt in relation to your income is too high. So we're going to look at your gross income. And that's another thing to point out. When we qualify you for a mortgage, we look at your gross income, not your net. So your gross income of $3,000, your credit card debt is $400 a month. We always look at things on a monthly basis. Your car loan, $500 a month, and student loan, $650. That totals $550 per month. We're going to divide that into your gross income. And in this case, your debt to income, your debt in relation to your income, it's 52% of your gross income, and that's too high for us. So I'm going to give you another example, and this is not what it has to be. It's just a better example. Your gross income is $3,000. Your monthly debt is credit card debt is only $200. Your car loan is $400, and your student loans are $350. So your total debt is $950. We divide that into your income, and that's 32% of your income is used to pay debt. We like that much, much better. But what we have a big margin of where we can have you fall into that debt to income category. So that's why it's always a good idea for us to be able to not just pre-qualify you, but pre-approve you and make sure that your debt to income is where it needs to be. So another thing that we look at, and this is very, very important, and this is credit. So I'm going to do a quick credit 101 crash course for you. There's 2 types of credit reports. There's the consumer credit report that you might see through Credit Karma or Discover or your Visa. They're very common, but there's also the mortgage credit report. There's some big differences there. Your Credit Karma is an estimation of your credit score and your credit. It's not a perfect science, your Credit Karma. That's the type that you can pull that 10 times a day. It won't affect your credit score. But you go to the mortgage credit report, which is also pulled when you buy a car, which is also pulled when you apply for a credit card. But this is a hard pull of your credit. And that hard pull, we pull from TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. Those are the 3 credit repositories. They give us an accurate, perfect picture of your credit and your credit score. So a hard pull is that mortgage credit report, and the soft pull is a Credit Karma pull. So I get a lot of people that call me and say, Betsy, I don't have enough credit. Nothing shows up on Credit Karma. I don't know what to do. Well, I will also do an in-file soft pull of your credit. And if you don't have enough, I'm going to make some suggestions to you. And one of them might be, if you don't qualify for a regular credit card, then we will suggest a secured credit card. And these really are not that bad. What it is you apply for a secured credit card and you put $300 down. And then you get a $300 credit line. So each month you can charge up to $300 and it's secured. We have those at Inland by the $300 you put down. If for some reason you don't pay your bills, we take that $300 and we apply it to the balance. Excuse me. So that's what a secured credit card is. And those tend to work really good for people, especially if you have a hard time with credit and you need a cap on your credit. Another way to develop credit is to become a cosigner. Target, Kohl's, MasterCard, Visa. I had my daughters become cosigners on my Target card when they were in college because I wanted them to develop their credit score. So they hung their hat on my credit and got a quicker, faster credit score because they became cosigners on my Target card. I didn't let them use my Target card. They were kind of disappointed with that, but we did build up their credit that way. So another thing that I see with some of my clients is that they've maxed out their credit, meaning if their credit line is $1,000, they've charged $1,000. Well, that doesn't work good, and it raises your risk of not getting approved as easily. So we usually suggest 30 to 50% of your credit limit should be used. So if you have $1,000 limit, try not to charge more than $500. It'll do wonders for your credit and your credit FICO score. There's also certain times when I advise my customers not to pay off credit. We have what's called rapid rescore technology, where we're able to really fine tune and look at your credit and see what we can do to enhance it and make it better. And that's some technology that we use when we need to. Lastly, even though this doesn't apply to first-time homebuyers really, I get asked a lot, what is a credit freeze? Well, a credit freeze is if someone has stolen your identity or if someone has scammed you and you don't want anyone to use your personal information, then you freeze your credit. I have my credit frozen and no one has ever stolen my identity or scammed me, but I don't want people using my credit. So the way that you freeze your credit, it's very, very easy. If you look at the bottom, Equifax, I've got the phone number and the website. Same for Experian, same for TransUnion. So that was my Credit 101 work for you there. So I want to tell you a little bit about FICO scores because this is really huge when it comes to buying a home. So what happens when you have two consumers in this case, and Jane has a high FICO score? Let's say Jane has a 700 FICO score and John has a low FICO score. His is, say, 600. Who do you think is going to get a lower, better payment? Well, believe it or not, that difference from a 600 score to a 700 score can be a difference of $250 a month on your mortgage payment. So again, please listen to that. A difference of 100 points on your credit FICO score can increase your mortgage payment by $250 a month. Why? Because your interest rate will be higher. Your mortgage insurance, if you have it, will be higher. Your homeowner's insurance will be higher. Your credit FICO score is used to determine a lot, and it can be $250 savings a month if you have that higher score. But just to let you know, credit FICO scores go from 300 to 850, and we normally kind of categorize below 560 as being in the area that you need some work done. And I talk to a lot of people on a monthly basis. I'm a credit mentor to get your FICO score higher so that you can buy a home. That bad, I really should change that screen, because I'd say it's not bad, it's marginal in between the 560 and the 650, because we do loans at 620, we do loans at 640. So I would have to say that's more of a fair. And then up to 700, you're getting in a very good spot. And then if you're up to 850, you have a walk on water, incredible FICO score. And congratulations if you do. So again, here is the annualcreditreport.com. This is where you can go in on an annual basis for free and order your credit report from the 3 credit repositories. And this is all in one. It's an annualcreditreport.com, and they pull all 3. So you can do it through the phone, you can, or you can even do a snail mail request if you want to. But that's how you get your credit for free once a year. To really nail home how your FICO score can determine your interest rate, I wanted to give you an example of car loans. And I want you to see the difference in the rate that happens. If you have a phenomenal walk-on-water super prime rate FICO score of 780 to 850, a new car rate is about 3.6. A used car, a little bit higher risk, is about 4.3. Prime 661 to 780, it goes up a little bit higher to 4.5 and 5.9. 601 to 660 is that stage, that area that a lot of people fall into. And that's where we can pretty much get you a mortgage, but we might have to work on your FICO score a little bit. New car rate 7.5 and a used car rate 10. Subprime 501 to 600, 11.8, used car 16%. Deep subprime, remember we talked about that, the 300 to the 500. Your rate on a new car is 14. Your rate on a used car is 20%. Look at that difference between 3.68 or 4 down to the 14% or 19 on a deep subprime FICO score. I just want you to understand the difference in what you will pay for things that you buy when your score is lower. One of the great things that we offer, this is down payment assistance, and this is fabulous. What it is it's a grant from either the federal government or the state of Illinois, and this is a down payment that most of the time is forgivable, meaning it doesn't have to be paid back. So this helps you pay for down payment and closing costs. It's a great, great program. I do these all the time. So I'm going to give you 2 examples. On the left-hand side, if you look at, if we're going to apply an IDA loan and a federal home loan grant loan or grant. These are 2 of our grant groups that offer us grants. Say you have a $200,000 sales price. We get you a $10,000 IDA grant, a $6,000 federal home loan bank grant, and your new loan amount, lo and behold, is $184. You have $16,000 that just got reduced, and your new loan amount is $184. Well, there's always a catch. Your income has to be in a lower area, and on the right-hand side, I have what that is. For a family of 1, actually, this went up to $52,200. For a family of 2, it's at $59,650. A family of 3, $67,100. A family of 4, $74,500. And a family of 5, $80,550. Those amounts went up a little bit, and I apologize I didn't have the correct amount in. So if your income is higher than that, then we're going to go to the second example. And that's where we use an IDA grant of $10,000 and your sales price gets reduced from $200,000 to $190,000. So it's still reducing your loan amount by $10,000. So again, what is the income cap for this? If you look on the right for Cook, DuPage, Kane, Lake, McHenry, and Will, that income has been increased, and that's now $111,840. So that means if your income is below $111,840, you would qualify for this grant. So it's a great, great program. We do them all the time. And it's because Uncle Sam and the state of Illinois want you to become a homeowner. Sometimes when I talk to people, they don't know why their debt to income is too high. So I have to say we go back to the drawing board and we literally go through a budget. We walk through the steps and we figure out where's that leak? Where is that money going out the door? Is it too many Ubers? Is it too many lunches out? Well, we figure it out. And I do that as a credit mentor. I do that for people, but hopefully you won't need it. Lastly, this is something that I want to show you, and it's not regarding any short-term down payment for your home, but it's regarding saving for the long haul. And I just want to show you this example because I feel it's really important for you to see this and understand this. Look on the left-hand side and see that in January of 1991, there's a balance of $54.91. And then look on the right-hand side and look at that final market value. In 2021, 30 years later, that $5,400 became $189,000. Well, why am I telling you this when we're talking about first-time home buying? It's because I not only want you to save for a home, I want you to save for the long haul. And this is an example of me foolishly in the 1990s. I liquidated my 401k to go to Hawaii, had a great time, but I said adios to that $54.91, and I would have been $189,000 richer if I would not have liquidated that. So that's just something that I like to show people, just to show you what compound interest is and what saving for the long haul can do. Lastly, we know that there's a lot of things that can keep you up at night. And this is a lot of the things that we do. Of course, my area of expertise is the financial basics, but there's a lot that we can offer you. And this concludes my presentation. So I'm going to stop screen sharing and hand it over to Denise. Thank you. Oh, you're on,
Yeah, you're muted.
okay.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Wonderful, thank you. Thank you so much, Betsy. That was so informative. My name is Denise Taslar, and I am a realtor, and I am excited to share with you what I call Home Buying 101 and what to expect. So it's pretty exciting, you know, thinking about, you know, finding your home and how do you go about doing that. So today I wanted to do like an overview of the home buying process, kind of from start to finish, and kind of go over what buyer's agency means and things that your realtor does and doesn't do, and then go over some important documents that you know about so that you can thoroughly review them. The first step is to find a realtor. Some of the things that I would suggest, finding a realtor that's knowledgeable of the area, somebody that's going to make themselves very available to you, holds your hand from the beginning to the end. It truly is a process, and you want to lean on them to really hold your hand through it. And it's somebody who's going to educate you. It's ultimately your decision in so many ways. And so the realtor's there to really educate you so you can make good decisions. The next step is Betsy went into great detail, which was awesome, about a pre-approval letter. So just wanting you to know that most all realtors are going to ask for you to have that already taken care of. It's so important. I kind of call it like your passport to leave the country. You're going to need that passport, that pre-approval letter, in order to really go out looking at homes. It's really a very vital step.
Denise,
Yes.
they are saying that they can't hear you very well.
Okay, let me try to get a little closer. Can you hear me better? I'll talk a little louder too. Is that better? Thumbs up. Okay, sounds good. Thank you. So yeah, so the pre-approval letter, I don't know if you couldn't hear me, but the pre-approval letter is just very important. It's a vital step. And then after you get that pre-approval letter, then you're going to identify your needs and wants with your realtor. So it's important that you take a look. Are you looking at single family? Are you looking at condos? How many bedrooms might you need? How many bathrooms? And even bathrooms, it's so important to, really kind of explain, like, is 1.5 baths okay? Is a half bath okay? Because that doesn't have a shower, but it has a toilet. So you might be like, oh, okay, 1.5. I don't need 2 full. You're going to talk about like 1-car garage, 2-car garage. You can get very specific, and that's something that you're going to want to share with your realtor as to what your wants and your needs are. Sometimes things are needs and sometimes things are wants. So it's important to go through that with your realtor. Then once you do that, identifying your needs and wants, you're going to begin that home search process. Your realtor is going to use those needs and wants to set up a search in the multiple listing service, which is called the MLS, which is an area that provides information to realtors from sellers who are selling their home, right? So it's up to date, it's very current. That's what your realtor is going to lean on, looking for the information, and then let you know when these homes become available. A realtor doesn't just show the homes in the MLS. I just want to mention to you as well, if you did see a for sale by owner, or you see new construction, like, make sure that you already have that conversation with your realtor, because your realtor can definitely represent you on those things as well. One thing I would mention with new construction, if you're considering it, and Greg will talk a lot more about new construction, but just to let you know, you really want to visit it from the beginning when you go there with your realtor. It's very important that you bring your realtor along on that first visit. Also, open houses. No reason you can't stop at open houses. We're not seeing maybe as many as we used to, but they're out there. You can go to open houses. And once you have chosen your realtor, you will want to let the realtor who is in the home, welcoming you, let them know that you are working with a realtor. So no reason you can't go out there looking at them. Just bring one of their business cards, or just, like I said, let the listing agent know. Once you have identified all of that, then you're going to move on to the next stage, which is actually going out and looking at homes, right? You're going to actually go to what we call showings. That identification of what homes you want to see in person, you'll let your realtor know. Your realtor will set up those showings for you. A couple of things to think about: be on time. The sellers have maybe vacated their home to allow some time for you to come in and see it. And it's really important to realtors that enough time is given to you as well. You want to take a look, walk around, make sure that this is something that you could see yourself living in. I always say looking at homes is a process of elimination. So after you leave that home, then you're going to take a look at that property and really see if it checked all of the boxes for you. Not every home's going to meet, it's hard to find the perfect one, right? There may be some things that unfortunately we might have to say, oh, that might not be as important, but know ahead of time, like, what are your really like check boxes that are the most important to you, so that if you do have to, maybe perhaps have something that maybe you wanted a finished basement and it's not, but that's something you could do down the road. That might not be a property then to completely eliminate, because you could actually change that. Pick only the best options. I always say that you can pretty much tell online if you like a property. Once you go to see it, it may not be what you thought. Photography and things like that can sometimes change things. But if looking at the photos, most likely going to see it in person probably isn't going to be something then that you're probably going to keep as high up on the I really need to have this house. One suggestion I have too when you go out with showings is not to go in at night in the dark. It's just really difficult, especially we could talk a little bit too about the market. You guys, I know you all hear about the market right now, right? Multiple offers and homes are selling, within a day. So really, when you're going to make that decision on moving fast and making an offer on a property, it really would be best, if at all possible, to go see that property during the day. And Greg can kind of elaborate a little bit more on that too, because he knows all the things that you're looking for as well. Then once you find the one, then your realtor is going to help you write an offer, and your realtor is going to take a look. I mentioned market conditions. That's huge, right? So want to take a look at the market conditions, because if the homes are selling in a few days like they are right now, and sellers are receiving multiple offers, it's likely not a good idea to throw in a lowball offer. It's ultimately your decision. Just like I said when I started out, realtors are there to educate you, give you the facts, let you know the list to sell ratio. So that's something that we can do. We can look and see in a certain community what the list to sell ratio is right now. So right now, if we pulled most communities, we're going to find that it's about 97 to 99 and even 100% of what the seller is getting of their list price. But that's not always the market. Someday the market's going to look differently. It doesn't stay. We can tell that, it goes up and down. It's all different things happen with the market. So really leaning on your realtor to talk about negotiation and how to make that offer, and really lean on what the market conditions are at the time. Ultimately, I can't stress enough that decision is ultimately yours though. So if you want to put in an offer for X amount, and even if the statistics aren't really showing that that's the what the sellers are averaging or things like that, it's ultimately your decision. One of the things that I'm asked a lot about is, what is earnest money? So when you make an offer on a property, the seller is going to look to see if you're going to put up what we call earnest money. And it's really a promise to fulfill your contractual obligations. This amount of money is no set amount that's in stone. Generally, we sometimes see 1% of the offer price. Again, it doesn't have to be that. That's just a really general thing that I can share with you to help you. The higher the amount you offer, the more serious your offer will appear. And that amount is applied to your cost at closing, and it is not an additional expense. We also want to talk about inclusions and exclusions. So in the MLS, the seller is already letting all of the realtors know what they're leaving in the home, what's staying, like appliances. So you'll lean on your realtor to say, is the washer and dryer staying? Is the stove and refrigerator staying? And then there might be even something that you might think is staying, but you should make sure that you mention to the realtor, like, I really like that bookshelf that's right there. Well, there's all about, is it attached? Is it not attached? So you want to really make sure that you're going through that property, through that home, and making sure that you're aware of what is staying. There might be a situation where there's a pool table in the basement, and maybe you don't want that pool table. So that's something that you'll want to convey to your realtor as well. Like, I really want to make an offer, but that pool table's got to go. So that's all stuff that can be negotiated. And then you've got the closing date. So when you'll close on the new home, it's dependent on a lot of variables. Your realtor is going to help you select an ideal date when the time comes, but it's good to be thinking about what might be ideal for you ahead of time. If you're obtaining a mortgage, then you're going to want to ask your lender. You're going to ask, like Betsy, how quickly they can process your loan. Typically, it's about 30 to 45 days, but I would say that's just typical. You want to lean on talking like to Betsy when you're doing something like that. Your realtor is going to negotiate for you. Professional negotiation strategies is a real deep understanding of the market in order so that they can negotiate best for you on your behalf. Again, I know I'm repeating, but I can't stress enough. There are just guidelines that helping you. I think if you share with your realtor what it is that you want, like this is where I really want to be at the end of the negotiations, then it really helps the realtor to know how to strategize and to help you. And then once you have an agreement on like what's staying and the closing date and the earnest money, we call that all parts of a contract. Once everybody agrees, then you can move on to the next exciting part, which means that the contract is contingent on three things. One, it's contingent on a mortgage contingency that you actually get your clear to close. Another contingency is that your attorney will have 5 days to look at the contract and be able to modify it, meaning that if there's something in the contract that they would like to go to the seller's attorney to ask for modification. I'll give you an example. Let's say that you picked a closing date, you guys all agreed, but then a couple days later, the seller's like, whoa, what was I thinking? Like, I'm going to need a little extra because I may be out of town, whatever it might be. That would be all renegotiated during the attorney review. And if both parties still continue to agree, then you continue to move on. The other thing is the home inspection, which Greg is going to explain so much more to you about that. But during those 5 days, that's the time that you'll have your professional home inspection. And the mortgage application at this time too needs to start to being filled out, which, like Betsy would be always helping you again, holding your hand with that. Like this date, we need these documents. And your realtor's there just really being a part of keeping your team together, right? Because you're going to have a real estate attorney, you're going to have your lender, you're going to have your home inspector, you're going to have your team, and your realtor is really going to help coordinate all of that. And then once you do the home inspection and there are things like maybe safety issues, things that you would like to ask the seller to either have fixed or ask the seller to give you a credit so that when you own the home, you could use that money to fix that item. Once you ask the seller for, which one you want, either it's fixed or a credit, and they say, yes, you're going to negotiate that. It might not always be 100% yes, we're right on giving that to you as the buyer, but you'll negotiate it. And then once everybody agrees, then you can move on from that as well. And then there's a final walkthrough, meaning that you get to go back to the house. It's exciting because you haven't been there since the home inspection. And when you're there, you're looking to make sure that everything is in the condition that you saw it in last. There's no damage. Any repairs that were agreed upon, your realtor is going to check and make sure that you can visibly see that the repair was done. If it's something that you couldn't, like let's say it's in the electric box, right? And since your realtor is not an electrician, won't be able to really tell, but that's how we're going to lean on the receipts, right? From a licensed electrician. So even if you physically can't see it, there's other ways to document that that work was completed. We want to make sure that the sellers have moved out and that they left the property in what we call broom clean condition, meaning that they didn't leave any trash or unwanted items behind. They're not required to clean the home, but they are required to leave it in its broom clean condition. Then closing is set. Closings are a little different these days, last 2 years, right? With COVID. In the past, everybody was really there, the buyers, the sellers, the buyer's attorney, the seller's attorney, both realtors. It was really like a fun day. Congratulations, it's exciting time, and everybody was there. With COVID right now, the title companies are really just having the buyer there, and even some of the attorneys are really doing things remote. So it is a little different, but that's okay. It still works, and everybody gets through the closing, and then the keys are handed to you and you become a homeowner. So it's very exciting. And some of the things to remember to do too is to have your locks changed. and to make sure that you've called for utilities. You want to have those put in your name, your electric, your gas. You also want to call the village, the town, make sure that you've set up water and garbage. That's really real estate home buying 101. Another thing I wanted to share with you, because it's asked by buyers, potential buyers all the time, is, do you have to pay for the service of a realtor? And the answer is 99% of the time, no. The seller is paying a commission to the broker who is listing the property. And then that listing broker is collecting that commission from the seller. And then they are paying out to their agent a portion, some of it, whatever is the agreed upon amount. And then the seller is also providing the commission for the buyer's broker. And then that buyer's broker is going to pay that agent, your agent. So everybody, just picture like a pie, right, of the commission. It's going to get divided that way. And so you will not need to pay your realtor. The seller's going to pay. There are some exceptions, like I mentioned, for sale by owner. You'll want to have that conversation with your realtor. If a for sale by owner may not offer a commission to a realtor, that doesn't mean that that realtor can't represent you. You could make arrangements to pay the commission directly to the buyer's realtor. But again, that's more uncommon. Realtors are your advocate. They're also like your concierge. They're there to be at the center of all aspects of the transaction. They really are there to work for your best interest and negotiate on your behalf, and then coordinate and facilitate all of those steps. I'll move on to let Greg explain the home inspection process.
What's up?
Yep. And I just muted them.
Okay. Hi, everybody. So at this point in your buying process, you've been pre-approved for the loan to purchase the house. You've been out looking at homes with your realtor. You found that house that you like. You've made an offer on it and it's been accepted. So now what? This is the time when your realtor, like Denise had said, will tell you that you need to get a home inspection done. A home inspection is an evaluation of the home so that you know the condition of the property and everything about it on the house that you're interested in buying. It does need to be performed by a home inspector that's licensed in the state that the house is in. That has come up a lot lately where people are like, well, my dad is a contractor, he can come and look at it. If you're going to be asking for anything, it does need to be done by a licensed home inspector. Most real estate contracts require that the inspection be performed within 5 days of the accepted offer. Your attorney can request an extension if the 5 days just doesn't work out and everything, but 5 business days is usually what everybody is looking for. So this is where I come in. I'm Greg Lehman. I own Classic Home Inspection Service, and my part in your home buying process is to inspect the property that you're purchasing. My job is to do a complete evaluation of the home structure and its components, and then report all of my findings to you. Okay. Switching. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Here too, if you need them.
Okay. So basically, what is a home inspection? Everybody has a different expectation of what the home inspection is. My job is to tell the story that the home is telling. Every home has a story to tell. If it's new construction, it's kind of how it's put together. If it's an existing home that's been remodeled, we need to make sure that everything has been installed properly. that everything is going to be safe so that when you move into the house, there's no big surprises. We look at all of the major components. So we're looking at your heating, your air conditioning, your plumbing, your electrical, the entire outer structure, the roof, the windows, everything about the house. And we do have a standards of practice that we follow in the state of Illinois. So the way that they have us grade everything as we're going through is we use the scale of satisfactory, marginal, and poor. Satisfactory, anything that we're saying is satisfactory means that the item that we're looking at is within its normal lifespan, that it's installed properly, and everything is safe. Now, a lot of times we're looking at homes where they're older. So you're going to have different ages on your mechanicals, air conditioners, furnaces, water heaters, things like that. You may have something that is working perfectly fine, but it's at or near the end of its normal life cycle. Those we put in marginal condition, meaning that they're working just fine on the day of the inspection, but we do anticipate repairs or replacement in the very near future. And then poor, those are the needs of the house. Those are things that are not working on the day of the inspection, that they're not working as they're designed. They're not installed properly. They're safety hazards, any of the above. Those are typically the things that you would either be asking to be repaired or that you would be asking for a credit to repair or replace. Now, one thing that I need to mention on this is a lot of times people will ask if a house is up to code. Codes are basically the rules that need to be followed at the time something is being installed or the time it's being built. So if you're purchasing a house that's, say, 60 years old, the codes 60 years ago were very different from what they are today. So you're going to have things in there that were installed based on codes that were 60 years ago, not necessarily what they are today. And it's not up to any current homeowner to come up and bring everything up to code. Many things on a house, they're grandfather claused in. We want to make sure that they were installed properly based on when they were, and that everything makes sense, it's working properly, and it's safe. Now, the state does, however, want to have certain things in a house always up to code. If they want something that is an old code to be brought up to code, or they want something to be done in a certain way, they take the code and they make it a law. Once it's a law, everybody has to follow those rules. So just an example of that are where smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors are installed within a house. The areas that they were to be put in 40 years ago, and we didn't even have carbon monoxide detectors 40 years ago, are completely different than what today's laws. So those do have to be followed regardless of when the house is built. Another thing we take into consideration when it comes into codes and laws are things that you're going to be doing to the house, future repairs, future remodeling, things of that nature. Because it may not be something that we need to bring up at the time of the inspection, but I try to make sure that you're completely aware of something, knowing what you're going to be doing with the house, so you know kind of what things you're going to need to change and what to expect. There's also homes that are sold as is. So when we're making a report for this, that's the home that the seller has said, we're not doing anything to the house. This is the price, buy it, don't buy it, whatever you want to do. Any repairs that need to be done, that's going to be on you. So obviously we're going through looking at those exactly the same way. It's not a code compliant inspection, but we want to make sure that you're completely aware of what that house is going to need. So the next thing is, there's a lot of categories. I put this in as, do you need an inspection? Pretty much any property you're buying, you should have an inspection done. Three categories that I kind of highlight where sometimes people won't get an inspection are the new construction, the remodeled homes, and the homes that are being sold as is. New construction, a lot of times people will waive an inspection or say, well, everything is brand new, it's got to be right. That doesn't necessarily mean that everything has been installed properly or safely, or that something wasn't changed by one contractor after another contractor has installed something. And it used to be that most contractors would go through and they would have somebody come through and do an evaluation of everything that has been installed on a property before they listed it for sale, make sure that all those items, which they call punch list items, were taken care of, and then they put the house on the market. Today, a lot of times new construction homes are marketed and sold before the home is even, the completion is, they're done with the house. And a lot of times they're just finishing things up when your closing date comes through. Things do get missed. I find more issues on new construction homes with items that are not installed properly. They've been altered by other contractors without anybody else knowing. So it's definitely a good idea to get new construction homes inspected. Remodeled homes or homes that have been refurbished by a rehabber, those are very important to get inspected. Rehabbers don't necessarily specifically have to have a license in any one area to upgrade the home. I see many rehabbers that are not licensed electricians that do electrical work. They're not licensed plumbers that do plumbing work. And it doesn't always get done properly, which can be very unsafe. So it's definitely a good idea that if even everything has been taken care of on the house and it's all new, that we have it inspected and make sure that it's all done properly. And then the other category, the as-is homes, which I kind of touched on already, those are the homes that the homeowner has said that they're not doing anything to. And that's kind of one of the things where people will question, well, should I have an inspection done? They're not going to take care of anything anyway. Having the inspection done is kind of the way that you can make a business decision on that house. You'll get the condition report, which kind of spells everything out that's going to need to be done on that house. At that point, you can kind of figure how much money you're going to need to put into that house after your purchase price. So you're making a business decision on, is that the right house for you based on the amount of money that you're going to need to put into it after the purchase. Some of the top things that we do find when doing home inspections, and you can kind of look at the list here as I'm talking, the electrical, the plumbing, the foundation, and the heating are the top 4 of everything that we run into. Electrical being number 1 on everything. It's very easy to go through a house and everything looks like it's installed properly. It's working at the time that you did the showing, but there's a lot of deep down electrical problems that we find in homes from, I always say, the do-it-yourself electricians or people that have watched a few episodes on YouTube and now they're electricians in their mind and they don't necessarily do things that will be safe in the long run. Another thing that I recommend that everybody have done is radon testing. So if you don't know what radon is, we live in a part of the country that we are over bedrock and limestone. And radon is a gas that's given off from the decaying of uranium deep down in the earth that is embedded in the bedrock and the limestone. Radon is everywhere. It's out in the air that we breathe outside of the home, but it's very dissipated and diluted in that air. And inside of a house, it didn't used to be a big problem because the radon would come in, it would leak out through the cracks in the windows, air spaces, poorly ventilated attics and poorly insulated attics. But now homes are built very much more energy efficient. So now we're sealing that radon or that gas inside of the box. It can't escape. So we want to make sure that it's a healthy level inside the house, not an elevated level. The EPA has set a level of 4 parts per trillion in a liter of air that's considered the action level. If it's above that, the house should be mitigated or ventilated properly so that that radon can get to the outside of the house. So we have a way of monitoring that. It's a 48-hour test. It does an air sample every minute for that 48 hours and then gives us an average of what that radon level is inside the house. That is definitely something that you should be able to ask for if the levels are high when purchasing a house. If for some reason the homeowner didn't want to mitigate that or take care of it, you have the option of doing the expense yourself and taking care of it, again, making a business decision, or backing out of the deal. But at that point, the seller does have to disclose for any future offers that are on that house. So they might as well just take care of it in the first place while they have the good deal on the table. So what I will be providing you at the end of the inspection is an inspection report or a condition report. So when you're selecting a home inspector, it's important to find somebody that's trained and educated in the type of property that you're buying. You want to make sure that they know what they're inspecting, how it should be inspected, and how it should be reported to you. So it's always a good idea to kind of somewhat interview your inspector, whoever you're deciding to use, ask them a few questions and give them quite a bit of detail about the home that you're purchasing so that you know that you're finding the right inspector. It's better to find the inspector that knows what he's looking at and how to report it to you than basing your decision completely on the price of the service. This is going to be one of the largest purchases that you'll make in your life. So you want to hire professionals who will do the best for you. I've been trained to properly evaluate, among other things, the roof, siding, windows, appliances, the plumbing and electrical systems, and the heating and cooling systems. So the report that I provide to you, it is a condition of the house. It's not to be considered a long list of things that the homeowner must fix or replace, but for you to use it as a tool to educate you on the property you're buying and to help you make that business decision on your purchase. I always alert you to the items that are not installed properly, they're not functioning properly, or simply just at near or at the end of their normal expected life. I'll also help you to understand how to operate and maintain all of these components that are in the house. Whether you hire me from Classic Home Inspection or another qualified home inspector, I definitely encourage you to have an inspection, and I hope to work with you at your new home. Thank you very much. Oh, go ahead. Okay.
Let's stop this share. All right, I'm going to put up a poll real quick. If you can just let us know how many people are watching on your screen, that helps us get more accurate attendance. And we do have some questions already. So this is for Betsy. In DTI ratio, is current rent payments removed from that value?
Yes, it is, because we're going to include the mortgage debt, the mortgage payment. So we take the rent out, but it gets replaced by the mortgage debt. Good question.
When getting grants, the amount you make only is for the application, correct? If you make more money the following year, you will need to pay back the grant?
Correct. We only take your income at the time of application. And that's the great thing about a mortgage. You could have it for 30 years and your circumstances could change next week. But as long as you close on that mortgage, you are approved and you own that house.
I think this is in regards to the inspection. What about looking into a home that is going to go on auction? Is that something that they need to inspect?
Typically, you have an inspection period for when a house is going to be sold on auction. I do a lot of those where I will do a walkthrough with the person that's looking to do that. It's not a full-blown inspection because typically you get 30 minutes to look at that house. That's usually the window, and it's going to be with other people that are also looking to purchase that house. They give you that 30-minute window, walk through, place your offer, but we can look at the major components and I can do the walkthrough with you at that time.
What is the general cost for an inspection and amount for radon testing?
Okay, that depends on what type of property you're looking at. Obviously, a condo and a townhouse is going to be a little bit quicker and easier to inspect than a house because we're not doing the outside of the condo or the townhouse because it's maintained by the association. We don't do a lot with that, so we're not charging you for that. A condo and a townhouse, usually average size will be about $400. And then the starting price for a house would be $450 and will go up from there depending on the size of the house. A radon test, as long as it's an average size house, we use different companies for that. Typically it's around $225.
Betsy, this one is for you. How does the down payment assistance work if you are a couple but not married? How are the rates affected?
It's the same whether you're married or not. We're going to take both your incomes to determine if you're within the income guidelines. Now, say there's two of you, but one of you makes $100,000 a year, then we would just take their income if that's enough to support the debt for the house. And we wouldn't use the other person's income, but then they wouldn't be on the note of the mortgage. So depending on your circumstances, we look at both your incomes and decide if we're going to use both or not.
Denise, this is probably a good one for you. Let's unmute you first. There you go. Chris says, I own my home paid off. I will be looking to sell this house and purchase a new home in the near future. What are the steps I should take and in what order should they be done?
Okay, great question. So I would say the first thing that you would want to do is to have a market analysis done on your home so that it could be evaluated as to what the worth of the home is, what the value is, what it would sell for, and then do some strategies of, is there something that needs to get repaired, something that might need to get fixed. And it's kind of like going to go into, maybe Greg wants to take it after me, just to kind of go into what that might look like from a home inspection idea of being a seller. And so after we evaluate maybe even cosmetic things that could be done, because it's going to make it more marketable. It could be painting, doesn't always need to be a repair. It could be just something that's going to make it more marketable. And then we're going to go over the costs of selling, because I explained, like, being a buyer, you don't have the cost of paying a realtor, but when you're a seller, you actually are now the one paying out the commission. So we would go over the costs of selling, and your home's paid off, so you could you could at least see what your net's going to be, and then that money obviously is going to go to you at the closing table. But then you talk about buying, so do you need to get a mortgage maybe, or want to get a mortgage? So then getting you in touch with the loan officer to get that pre-approval letter. You want to have that all set before you put your home on the market, so you're ready for the next step once your home sells. Talk about the time frame, and then decide too, are you looking to stay in the area? Can the same realtor provide you not only listing your home, but also helping you with your purchase? Or do we need to refer you on? Is it maybe out of state you're moving? Maybe we need to get a realtor in another area that can help you with that. So it might not just be one realtor, it might even be two, and even make the team even bigger. So I hope that helped. And Greg, I don't know if you want to explain a little bit about a home inspection for a seller doing that.
Yeah, I can definitely do that. So we do a lot of pre-market sale home inspections, where we would go through with the homeowner, the seller of the house, do the same type of inspection so that you can take care of anything that would normally come up in a home inspection from your buyer. But it kind of heads everything off so that you don't have the surprises after the fact, which could cause a deal to fall apart. This way, you know that everything is compliant, everything is working the way that it should, and that your buyer should just be able to come in, and it really streamlines the process. So we do those the same way for the seller. It just, like I said, it heads off a lot of surprises as you're going through the process.
I would like to interject. We did this presentation a year ago, and I sold my house last year, and I had Greg come to my house so I could make sure there was no hidden surprises. And pretty much I knew almost everything, but there were a few areas that Greg brought to my attention, and we were able to take care of it before we sold the house, which was helpful.
Does the home inspection include any other environmental considerations outside of just radon? Are thorough environmental inspections recommended for residential properties?
It's a really good question. So a home inspection in the state of Illinois, if you're having just a home inspection done, is pretty much just the structure. The standards of practice includes the house itself, detached garages and things like that. It does not cover like the grounds, the vegetation, anything like that. Radon obviously is something that I recommend for every house to have done, but then it also depends on if your house is on public water and sewer, or if you have a well and septic system where it's a private system that's there. Those do have to be tested and inspected and certified before the house can be sold in the state of Illinois. Typically that's done at the seller's expense, but it does have to be taken care of. So we want to make sure that that gets taken care of in the process. And then there are other things that will come up depending on the type of loan that you have. I know they're very specific on if it's ever, if that house was ever built where a dry cleaner was, or if it's in the near vicinity of a gas station and things like that. Those usually come up later down the road if certain environmental tests need to be done. Typically in a residential neighborhood, there's really no other environmental concerns that we would necessarily have to worry about.
All right. Got a question. They are a public school teacher. Are there any special mortgage programs or lenders I should look into because of their occupation?
There is a program that is available to first responders and teachers. And I know it's done in Cook County. I would have to check about the other counties, but it is a program out there that I would have to see if we could participate in it or not. But yes, there is a program out there, and it's specifically called for first responders, but it includes teachers.
All right, Denise, can you explain the difference between a condo and a co-op property?
Sure. The condo is going to be not single family, right? But a building with many condos. Townhomes sometimes can be actually classified as a condo. So that's something like I would say Betsy probably could talk to as well, that sometimes we think like it's a certain way, like realtors, we go show it, and even the listing agent sometimes thinks it's classified as something else, and then it'll turn out that it's not. So there's a PIN number that's attached to every single parcel of land, and that actually is the description. Betsy, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, it's pretty much how title is held, because condos are going to be held in a different type of title than co-ops. And co-op lending is very rare. We do it, but very rarely. It's not that big in Chicago right now, real big in New York City, but I think condos with the shared common areas, yeah, it's a whole different ballgame than co-ops are.
Yeah. And one thing, maybe it's a little off of what you had asked, but I'll just mention too, like that's something that, like if you were talking with Betsy about getting your loan, that pre-approval, you want to share like your realtor, and everybody needs to know, are you thinking single family or are you thinking condo? Because there's the assessment. So that's going to add also to your ability, your power, right, to purchase. And then taxes play into it as well. So that's all the kind of stuff that you'll want to share with with your lender and your realtor.
Because our pre-approval, we need to include a rough estimate for the taxes. We need to include that monthly association fee. That's a really good point, Denise.
Yeah, because you might be approved to say 300, but you were thinking single family, and then you ask your realtor to start taking you into condos, and we stay at the 300, but then we didn't plan on that assessments then, or the taxes are much higher than what the lender gave you for your pre-qualification and that. So that's all the stuff. That's why we're a team, and we all support you and we work together. And so that's really the dynamic of how great it is to work with an exceptional team.
We've got a couple questions about houses up for auction. Can you get a mortgage for a house up for auction, and do the grants apply to those listings?
You know what? I've been doing this for 30 years and I've never had a grant done on a auction property. And I believe most auction properties are cash only. Denise, would that be correct to say?
Those are all cash. They walk in already with their verification of funds. And so, and they are in the MLS, so auctions are listed there as well. It's not the only place. I would say if you're definitely like all about auctions, it probably not necessarily always, but just finding somebody, which I could help refer you if you need it, like somebody who's like really specializing in auctions, but they are available to realtors in the MLS to help you with as well.
What is a good time frame to start looking for a house if they are moving out of an apartment?
Great question. So timing is everything. I literally will take a old-fashioned calendar and set it out in front of a prospective buyer and actually look and say, all right, so here we are in January. When do you need to be in a home? When is your lease up? What's the most earliest you can be in? What's the latest? And we talk that out. And then we kind of look at the market time. So if market time, let's say, is an average and where you're looking is 24 days, we're going to add 24 days. Doesn't mean that's just textbook, right? It could be less, it could be more of how long it takes, in that area for homes to sell. But we could add that amount of time to it, and then we're able to kind of go backwards and say, well, gee, if you need to be in a property by this date, we really need to start looking by this date. So it's 45 days from the time you find your dream home and you have a signed contract, generally speaking, 45 business days till closing. So that's, textbook. Betsy, you could probably speak to it. I mean, you could really get a loan maybe done in 30 days, right? I mean, that's your area of expertise. I like to always make sure that I know, well, you're going to know from the pre-approval, but a realtor knows the lender, and it's great to just reach out, call the lender and just say to them, we're in a multiple offer situation. We don't want to offer something we can't deliver. Like if we put on this that we can close in 30 days, are you going to be able to do that? Right? Because Betsy, has deadlines, and you've got different things, paperwork that has to turn in. So as a realtor, for us to just promise a seller that we're going to close sooner than is all possible, that's just not setting you up for a good experience. It's not setting everybody up for a good experience. So we're going to lean on that too. And it does kind of change. Betsy could talk to us. It kind of changes sometimes with the environment. If I'm told, like, if you guys have a lot of refis going on, right, then maybe it's a little bit longer for you to get the other ones done. But generally speaking, it's 45 days that you can and usually no more than 60, which Betsy could talk to as well, because there's like locks to your mortgage rate and things like that. So we usually don't go really out farther. Would you agree, Betsy?
Agree. My copier is making very funny noises, so I apologize for that. But no, we always try to accommodate the closing time frame. And if we know we can't meet it, if for some reason it came in and it was 25 days, we would let all parties know this is going to be really hard to meet. We will do our best, but we can't say for sure that we can do that quickly. So yes, when Denise says it's 30 to 45 days, it really is, because we need to gather the condo documents, the homeowner's insurance, everything. The inspection goes on usually when we start processing. So many, many variables to gather in that 45-day period.
And if they're looking to move out of the apartment, and that's, from time you make the offer, about how long should they plan? Is there an average for amount of time it takes to find a place?
Sure. So it's never too early to sit down and do a pre-buyer consult. Like today's, real estate 101, right? Buying your first home. But sitting down with a realtor and really strategizing your personal needs and your personal schedule would be first. And then I would say, if you were to tell me that your lease was up in June, then I would say it's not too early just to sit down and go over the personal process and putting a plan in place. But I would say you probably could already start looking at properties March. Wouldn't be too early. Plus, you also need to figure out, would you be willing to pay for a month's rent, even if you needed to, buy a house earlier, right? I mean, those would be all things that we'd have to go over, and you could lean on. One thing that I can mention too, like your realtor really doesn't need to know like a lot about your personal finances. It's really you and your lender that's going to have those discussions, but you're just giving your realtor the guideline, like, hey, I would be okay with getting out of, paying up 1 month of my lease, even though I won't be living there and still buying. And that would help. Or share with your realtor, like, that would be a struggle for me. I wouldn't want to do that. I really need it to be that date. Then maybe we don't put that offer in quite yet. And it is too early to go looking at houses. Because if you find your dream home, you don't want to pass on it because the timing wasn't right. So it's best really to plan it. So I hope that helped. It's going to be different. You'd have to give me some scenario here of like, when do you actually need to be in, or things like that. But
And the finances are confidential, but if you give me permission to share some things with Denise or the realtor, then I will certainly do so. But I always ask for your permission first, because it is your personal financial information.
What is the best way to find out if the property you're looking to buy is something that you can rent out in the future?
yep. So if you're looking like for a condo or townhome, there's going to be bylaws, and those bylaws are going to actually give the rules of if something can be rented out. And some of them are no rentals, some are, it can only be maybe 10% of all the condo units can be rented out, or it could be there is none of them can be rented out.
Also, from a mortgage perspective, an owner-occupied property, the interest rate is very competitive, and an investment property interest rate is substantially higher. So that's something to take into consideration too.
One thing I want to add on that too is that if you do buy a property and they say that it can be rented out, stay very active with your homeowners association meetings or get on the board, because that can change in one meeting if they decide that they don't want to rent them out anymore, and now you thought that it could be and it's not anymore.
When looking for a condo or townhome, what should I consider when with mortgage budgeting, given that there are usually additional HOA fees?
We take that into consideration. When I look at your debt to income ratio, I'm going to include that monthly homeowners association fee in your debt to income. So that is considered a big part of your payment. I mean, not a huge part, but it is part of your payment. So we take that into consideration when we pre-qualify you.
What if the home I am looking at is found to have been flooded, had a flooded basement in the past? Do the owners need to disclose that? And what are the disclosure rules there?
Yes.
Yeah,
Well,
there's
Denise, yeah.
an Illinois seller's disclosure, and the seller completes it. A realtor cannot help them. So if a seller asks a question like, is this the way I write this up? Is this how I answer it? The answer is contact your attorney. an attorney will advise them as to how to answer the question, because it's their interpretation of the answer as well. So when you go to purchase the home, that's one of the things that you'll be given is that seller's disclosure. And it's got like 30 questions on it, like have they occupied the home in the last 12 months? Are they aware of any foundation cracks? Are they aware of any problems in the heating system? Are they aware of any windows that aren't operating? I mean, there's one is like, have you ever operated the home as a meth lab? I mean, there's so many questions that are on there. And then you as a buyer also sign it. And then I'd lean on your attorney as well for understanding, you know, your questions with it. The Illinois seller's disclosure is really a very much attorney type question answer. I'm not trying to get out of the answering it, but it really is very much an attorney that the seller talks to about it.
Well, plus Greg, the inspector, is going to notice things like that as well
Yes,
as our
that's where I was
appraiser.
headed in just a second here. So I do find evidence of flood damage in homes kind of often. Something to keep in mind is even though there is a disclosure law, there's homes that are older that there's been multiple homeowners that have owned it that you may not even know if something had flooded before, what caused it or whatever. But anytime that I see something, the first thing I do is evaluate, is it still safe? Is it functioning the way it's designed? Was it a one-time event, or is it something that's, you know, reoccurring? And then I always put it in there that we want to have your attorney ask them what happened. There's times where we'll have a storm, the power goes out, and maybe your sump pump doesn't work. So you have water that backs up and stains wood in a basement. Doesn't necessarily mean that it caused any significant damage, but it leaves flood damage or water stains in there. We want to know, was it something simple like that? Or is it something that was a more significant event and we need more documentation on that? So that is something that comes up in an inspection. We just need to do a little bit more investigating and fact finding when we find things like that.
If you work in the gig or independent contractor jobs, how do you determine what they can afford? Do you look at yearly taxes or their weekly or monthly pay?
We always look at 2 years worth of track record for your job time. So we're going to take a look at your last 2 years tax returns. We're going to look at any 1099s you filed. We're going to look at your last, whether they're pay stubs or bank statements, to verify what your income has been the last few months into the, well, in this case, it would just be January, but we will document it through the last 2 years, just like we would anybody else, whether you're salaried, whether you're hourly. We look at 2 years track record of your income and your job.
In terms of percentage of the overall purchase price, how much should you expect to pay for the down payment on a house?
That's your decision, how much you want to put down. When I help people with grants for down payment, they need to have 1% of their own saved funds. So if you bought a $200,000 home, you have to have 2,000 of your own saved funds, and then the rest can come from grant or gift or whatever. But if you don't want to have a really high payment, or you don't want to have mortgage insurance, we look at what your wants and needs are, kind of like Denise was saying earlier too, to figure out what's the best payment for you and how much can you afford to put down and how much do you want to put down.
All right, we've got a little bit of time left. If anyone has any more questions, give you a moment to type those in.
They're all great questions.
They are.
I feel this is my 7th time doing this program with some of you, and I feel like I have learned something every year. Any recent inspection horror stories that you want to share while we're waiting? Or just something that stands out?
Definitely in this crazy real estate market right now where things are selling in hours, don't let anybody talk you out of getting a home inspection. I won't go into a lot of details on the one story that I have, but I have a single mom. She had lost out on 12 deals because she kept getting beat out on the price. Her real estate agent advised her on the last one that she should come in $25,000 over the asking price and waive all inspections. So she technically, and I put this in air quotes every time I say it, she won the house, but she won a big problem. So from the day that she's moved in, she has had big problems with the house. She talked to her sister about it. Her sister said, well, Greg did my inspection. You should have him come take a look at it. We've gone through the house. We've identified all of the problems, kind of put things in order for her of what she needs to do. But to get the house put in safe condition to live in, she needs to spend about another $60,000 to take care of everything that is going wrong with this house. So no house is worth jumping on and buying without being able to think about it and have an inspection to protect your investment. It's just so important.
Well said.
Thank you.
Is there a fee to use a mortgage broker? And do you need to find one in the area you live in? And I would add to that, is that the area you currently live in or where you are looking to live?
That's a good question. We are licensed in 50 states. So I've helped people, a good friend of mine just bought in Steamboat Springs, a second home, and we did the mortgage for them. So no, you want to, I think it's a good idea to have a mortgage lender in your immediate area. If you're buying in Illinois and Chicagoland, I think it's good to have someone who's familiar with the area, but it's not mandatory. Loan officers, mortgage loan officers are paid on commission, and that is included in the cost of the mortgage. You always want to get a loan estimate, an LE, a loan estimate, and you can find out what the costs are from a number of different lenders. You can get one from me at Inland. You can go to somebody down the street and you can ask for an LE, a loan estimate. And that's how you find out what all the costs are for that mortgage.
Is grant income ceiling based on pre-tax earning?
It's gross income. Yep, pre-tax.
Okay. All right, we'll give people another moment if they're typing anything in. We're almost out of time. We've got a little bit left, just a couple minutes. Does each mortgage broker charge different fees?
I believe so. And I probably should know more about the fees that my competition charges. But that's, again, what can be verified and disclosed in the loan estimate. So we all do charge different rates. So yes, the answer would be yes.
Are student loan size a big factor, or is it just the monthly payment? I assume that's to figure out how much you can afford.
We take the monthly payment of the student loan, and we'll see some people might have, $5,000 worth of student loans, or somebody might have $100,000 worth of student loans. I think the most I've seen ever is probably $200,000 worth of student loans. But what we do is we take that monthly payment, and the monthly payment normally needs to be on the credit report. It needs to be verified with an independent credit report. You can't just say to me, well, this is what my payment is. And right now with student loan payments being deferred, the US government has deferred them again to June, I believe, of this year. If your payment is zero, I can't take that. I have to have a payment. So you have to go back to the Student Loan Association and say, can you tell me what my payment will be? Because otherwise, without that information, I can't pre-qualify you for a home. Very important, very good question.
On that, could they, you have the option to pay in addition, even if it's not a requirement. Could they just continue paying their student loans like they would have to show an amount, or is that not considered like an official answer to give them?
No. If they've continued to pay, that's great. It all comes down to what's listed on the credit report. And I can pull an in-file soft pull credit report, and I can look at those student loan payments and see if it's listed as zero or if it's listed with an amount. Right now, I have to say that most of the credit reports I've seen that are coming through lately are showing zero for the student loan payment, but not all of them. So it really depends on how it is verified by the Student Loan Association.
And I will mention that we have a program coming up in the spring on how to pay off those student loans. I don't have the date in front of me, but it will be in the next newsletter, which is coming out in about 2 weeks. So keep an eye out for that. Our last question here. If you pay your credit card balance in full every month, does that get included in your credit debt?
Great question. This happened to me last year, bought a new home. And with the day they pulled my credit report, I pay my 2 credit cards off every month. They pulled it when I had the majority of the balance. So they qualified me with, I think it was a $3,000 balance or whatever it was. And so that didn't work. My debt to income was too high. So what they did is I paid off my credit cards in full, like I normally do. And they pulled an addendum to the credit report. They pulled another, I think it cost like $5, whatever. It doesn't matter. We pulled the additional addendum to the credit report. It showed the zero balance and we were fine. But that's what we do in those instances. And I got caught with that. So now I know.
Okay, well, thank you all for your time and your knowledge. Like I said, I feel like I learned something additional every year. So I did share the handouts and Betsy's slides in the chat. I will also send them out with the recording when that is available. And like I said, you'll get that if you registered through the library's website. If you registered through Meetup, just send us an email to the programming@elmlib.org, or just keep an eye on our YouTube channel early next week. I spelled programming wrong.
Well, great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
All right. Thanks,
Enjoyed all the
everyone.
questions.
Yeah, have a good evening.
You
Bye.
too.
Bye.
Bye.